Well, welcome everybody to another amazing episode here in the Tiny Room. As always, a jam-packed episode. We've got Mandy Pretorius with us, who's part of our therapy team. And I'm Lucinda Jane Valentine, the owner and lead therapist here at the Tiny Room. I focus predominantly on our tweens and teen clients. But we are going to get into a hot topic. But before we do, I would just like to say, Mandy, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Lucinda. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and so Mandy's going to flick between English and Afrikaans because Afrikaans is her first language, and we have quite a few Afrikaans clients who are probably going to be watching this episode, but I'll stick to English because that's my first language, but I'll try my best maybe here and there to gooi in the Afrikaans taal. Ek is tweetalig, ek sê maar net. But we want to get into the topic of infertility today, and before we get into that, I know that it's actually both of us. It's a topic or a focus area here at the Tiny Room that is close to our hearts. We've both had our own story when it comes to infertility. I don't want to share too much of mine. Maybe we'll get another chance to do that in another episode, but I just want you to go straight into it, and you can either start with your own story on why it is something that's so close to your heart, why you want to walk a journey with, you know, husbands, wives, families, individuals who are struggling with infertility. So yeah, I'm throwing it to you. The ball is in your court, and I'm just going to guide the conversation. But yeah, go for it.
Ja, dankie Lucinda. Ja, fertiliteit en infertiliteit is eintlik 'n baie groot probleem. En ek dink daar is tot 'n groot mate 'n stigma onder mense om nie oop te maak daaroor nie. If you look at the research, there was a new study that was published in April this year that shows that 1 out of 6 couples struggle with infertility.
Wow.
So if you can imagine there's 6 people in the room, at least one person in that room is struggling.
1 in 6.
1 in 6, and the numbers are increasing because in 2019, when the World Health Organization did the research at that point, it was 1 out of 8 couples.
Oh my goodness.
And now we're already at 1 out of 6. And I think, so because there is, there's still so much of a stigma attached to it. People feel, and the feelings attached to it is so sore, and so, you know, it's so raw, and people are feeling almost embarrassed to open up about it.
But do you think also, sorry to break your word, but I'm also noticing, and it was a personal thing for me too, is we separate the physical stuff that's going on from the mental health side, and we don't think that we're going to need mental health support during all of that ups and downs emotionally and all these things, and the guilt and the shame and the not knowing, can you talk about it, you know, all these things. So I'm also noticing that people try and deal with the physical side and do all that they can and go to specialists and stuff like that, but they're not realizing that there's maybe grief involved, there's trauma involved, there's so many other mental health care things. But okay, anyway, yes.
Ja, ek dink tot 'n groot mate raak mens wanneer jy in daai situasie is so gefokus op die fisiese aspek daarvan, want jy weet jy probeer 'n probleem oplos. Jy probeer kyk na, maar wat is fout, hoe kan ek dit beter maak, wat se opsies is vir my beskikbaar. Maar ons vergeet dat jou emosionele welstand so 'n groot belangrike rol speel in daai hele journey wanneer jy deur iets soos infertiliteit gaan. Want sonder regtig daai sterk emosionele gevoel van well-being binne jouself en in jou partnership met jou partner, is dit 'n baie moeilike proses om deur te gaan. En is daar soveel huwelike wat ly onder dit. Ook oor dat different partners go through it in a different way. And so one person might communicate and want to talk about it, whereas the other person don't want to talk about it and want to deal with it on his or her own. And partners don't realize what the other partner needs. So they're not supporting each other always, or they feel almost isolated from each other because they're not understanding what the other one needs.
So what do you think are some tips and some kind of like ideas on how we can support each other? Because there's two people normally that are making a child or trying to make a child. Nowadays you can do it on your own, by the way. But just trying to navigate that. What have you found are helpful ways to make it easier within the home? And then obviously maybe go and tap into therapy and our therapy process and come and see you. But yeah, like what worked for you, or what maybe didn't work and you should have maybe done it differently? I don't know.
Yeah. Ek dink kommunikasie is key. Communication is key. If you don't have proper communication, where you can really voice what you are experiencing, it leads to a lot more. Ek dink as daar goeie kommunikasie is en vertroue is tussen partners, waar mense mekaar kan vertrou met emosies. En dat dit werklik ook beide se proses is en dat albei sal verstaan dat ons ervaar dit verskillend. As jy gaan kyk, 'n vrou gaan dit meer aan die fisiese sy en die emosionele sy ervaar, want dit is haar liggaam wat deur dalk moontlik fertiliteitsprosesse gaan en prosedures wat gedoen moet word en so aan. Waar as partykeer is dit dieselfde geval met die man, maar baie keer is dit meer 'n emosionele aspek net by die man ook. En ek dink ook mense ervaar dit verskillend. Die navorsing wys vir ons waar daar manlike infertiliteit is. En dis ongeveer in 1/3 van gevalle waar daar 'n probleem is met die man se sperms en mobiliteit en vorming en al daai tipe goed. In gevalle waar daar jy weet dit die probleem hoofsaaklik by die man lê, ervaar die man daai trauma soveel erger as wat dit in die geval is dat die probleem by die vrou lê. En die sin dat in daai verhouding, as die man voel hy is die oorsaak, dan is it's almost as if he's starting to question his manlyhood and struggling with that. And he sees his wife struggling because he wants to give her this baby so much. And he feels he's at fault. So then that emotional struggle becomes so much bigger. Whereas in a couple where the problem, or I don't want to call it the problem, but
the
challenge is lying with the woman. The male might not feel the psychological impact of that as much as whereas it's indicated that
it's like this detachment really, because it's true, and I'm hoping couples that are watching this or people that are struggling with fertility that are watching this are open to the fact to go and have both partners tested and assessed. Knowledge is power, and then you can do with that knowledge what you will, but knowing is helpful. But a lot of men don't go and get assessed because they have this shutdown where no, it's not them, it's not their body. But like you said, once you do get that information and it is possibly them that has the blockage or the challenge, I can understand it must be quite a big knock. But at the same time, women, we feel the same, where we want to bear children. That's what biologically a lot of our parts are there for, and then it's not happening, and you're like, oh my goodness, like your womanhood is not being lived to its full potential. So, and we are seeing a lot more men come through our doors for all other mental health challenges, and I'm hoping to see after this episode that we're going to see more men come through our doors to chat to you about infertility and what they're going through with trauma and with just challenges with this whole situation, that they also have somebody to talk to if they are struggling to talk to their partner about it, because possibly their partner is going through a lot already that they don't want to go and add onto their plate a whole bunch of other stuff.
And I think that's why it's so important if you are going through infertility to not dismiss it and not dismiss the emotional impact it has on you as a person, but also on the relationship. And I would always suggest to anybody that's struggling with it, to reach out. And there is help available. There is emotional help available. I think on my journey of having to struggle, we tried for, I think it was about 6-7 years before we had our son. And that was after about, I think it was, I lost count. It was about 8 artificial inseminations.
What?
And Ivan was born after the 3rd IVF cycle. And so it was a real challenge. And if I can go back to the Monday I was then, I would tell her, just reach out and speak to somebody. Because I think you feel so isolated and you feel so lonely, and all your friends around you are pregnant.
Oh gosh,
and there's stalk teas and birthday parties, and you're trying to be so happy for all of these people, whereas inside, it's not that you're not happy for them, but you're just so sad for yourself.
Yeah.
And I think once people realize that there is people that understand that, and there is support for that.
Professionally and firsthand. We've got our own stories that we can tell you, and challenges.
Yeah, I think it makes that, you know, daai las word so verligter.
Oh, that's so true.
En ja, hier is ons nou, hoe oud is Evan, word nou 12 jaar later. En Evan word 12 en Mia is 8. En albei met IVF deur die genade van die Here.
Ja.
En dit was seker een van die toughste journeys wat ek in my hele lewe moes deurgaan. Maar ek dink as ek terugkyk daarop, kan sien ek ook soveel purpose in wat met my gebeur het persoonlik.
And you can use your story, you know, your journey is going to, or our journeys, and mine looks very different to yours. I think you went even further on, and I don't know what my journey is going to end up being, but you can give me so much advice and speak into my life, and this episode is going to hopefully instill and inject some courage and bravery to do the reaching out, because I understand even the stress, what it does on your body, to also adding challenges, and it's stress being held and emotions being held in your body, all the negative ones, you know, the resentment, the guilt, the anger, the frustration, that is not helping the situation either, not only from a fertility point of view, but also to do life. And you know, Mandy was just touching on that, where you see pictures of people having babies, and you know, people are like, yeah, you just look at each other and you fall pregnant and all these things, you know, and I'm like, well, actually it's not always the case for everybody, because it's 1 in 6. And I think to myself, some people also don't realize the stats, and that they mindlessly will, I find it kind of personal, and that's why I don't ask people who are married for quite some time, oh, do you not want to have kids? Or are you not going to have kids? Or why don't you have kids? And I just cringe, because I'm fine with it. It does annoy me sometimes. A lot of people have stopped asking us, but we shouldn't ask people, you know. I always say, when you see a belly or a baby, then you know, you know, there's the evidence. But when someone keeps on asking, it adds a sense of pressure when there's already so much pressure on us, because a lot of us want to have children, and it doesn't always just happen for everybody. So there's different angles that we can take to get there, and you know, there's surrogacy and there's all kinds of things, but they cost a lot of money. There's adoption. I get asked that a lot, don't you want to adopt? Both partners need to be open to adoption. You know, it's not always everybody's
it's
or fostering
that,
or whatever, you know.
It's never that clear cut.
Exactly.
When it's one thing, the same thing that two people want.
Yeah, you need to be on the same page with this.
There's different ideas when it comes to things like that.
Yeah.
But I want to touch on you saying, you know, friends asking and so on. And I want to speak to the audience, you know, and really encourage people that if you know that somebody is struggling with infertility, to be conscious about that. Ek dink een van die moeilikste goed vir iemand wat sukkel om swanger te raak, is om die hele tyd te moet rapporteer. En jy voel elke maand wat verbygaan is amper asof almal sit en wag om te hoor, okay, dit toe nog en dan jy weet dit
So
jy
true.
die altyd daai anticipation van jy voel jy moet
Perform.
ja, ek meen die waar is die resultate?
Ja.
So daar's 'n paar goed wat ek voel wat mense ek dink uit menslikheid baie keer verkeerd kry.
Ja.
En van die goed is soos om vir mense te sê just relax. If you relax, it's gonna happen.
I tell you.
Go on holiday.
That's the one. That's the one.
And to remember that no two people are the same. So if it worked for your friend,
Yeah.
it's not necessarily going to work for this friend.
Yeah.
So telling that type of information to people,
Yeah.
dit maak mense net meer gefrustreerd want jy dink by jouself, okay, ek is nou vreeslik bly dit het vir Sunny gewerk.
Yeah.
Maar dit werk nie vir my nie. En
So true.
so daai tipe goed ook en ek dink ook op 'n stadium was dit vir my so moeilik geweest dat ek het met my vriendinne wat swanger geraak het, ek sou hulle geluk gewens het, maar ek het op besluit geneem om nie langer na stokties en goed te gaan nie, want dit was vir my moeilik.
Ja.
So ek het 'n mooi geskenkie toegedraai en gestuur. Maar ek dink ook dat mens moet besef binne jouself wat is nodig vir jou.
Ja.
En as dit is dat dit is hoe jy voel, is dit okay om dit te doen. 'n Mens hoef nie skuldig te voel
Love it.
oor dat jy jouself beskerm nie. Maar ek dink as jy iemand daar buite het wat jy ondersteun wat deur dit gaan, is dit belangrik om nog steeds die persoon te jy weet dalk hulle sukkel, maar nooi hulle steeds uit.
Ja.
En gee vir hulle dan die keuse of hulle wil kom en of hulle nie wil kom nie. En dan ook, ek dink nog iets wat belangrik is as jy 'n vriend of 'n vriendin of 'n familielid het, wat sukkel met infertiliteit, is om aan hulle die spasie te gee. So basies vir hulle te sê, iets in die lyn van, ek kan net imagine waartoe jy gaan, ek weet nie hoe jy voel nie. Infertiliteit is 'n verskriklike groot challenge. Maar ek wil hê jy moet weet, ek is hier vir jou, as jy met my wil kom praat.
Ja.
Ek gaan nie jou die hele tyd vra daaroor nie, want ek weet nie, wanneer wil jy daaroor praat nie. Maar ek is hier, en ek's reg van wanneer jy met my daaroor
So
praat.
beautiful.
En om dan nie die hele tyd dit as in die topic te bring nie.
Ja.
Want mense is geneig dan jy gaan kuier saam met jou vriendinne en al wat hulle wil weet is, nou wat het toe gebeur?
Because you're thinking about it all the time anyway.
Ja.
You know,
So dit is amper asof daar nie geen normaliteit later is nie, want
Ja.
that's all you're talking about is
Ja.
the fact that you can't fall pregnant.
Love it.
So I think giving your friends and your family space to say that you are supporting them, but to leave the decision with them, whether
Yeah.
they want to talk about it or not.
Because I find that I know it's about 6.5 to 7 years, but it's also been some interesting stuff with endometriosis and having that removed and that operation, as they say, non-abrasive. It was horrible. And having to go through all of those things and some medication and specialists and stuff like that. I don't always go and tell my friends all the details of what these last 6.5 to almost 7 years have looked like, and also mentally and emotionally. So from the outside, a lot of people think that, oh, they're just fine with it, you know, that they're not really trying because Lucinda seems fine. But also that expectation, not expectation, but I don't want to be asked at the end of every month, did the red robot come or didn't you know, that type of thing.
Yeah.
So I just kind of keep quiet. But friends around me maybe don't know how challenging it has been, you know, that for 2 years you doing little cycle tests and going and every month at the end you get disappointed or not, and for 2 years it was just crying.
Yeah, you've probably spent like 1,000 rand.
I know, on tests, on so many tests. But at the same time you get so excited, especially when a friend says to you, you know, oh, you're glowing, I'm telling you now you're pregnant. You know, and you try not to let it go in, and they're like, no, I've got this gift. You know, I've got this gift. I can see when someone's pregnant, and you don't want it to go in, but it goes in.
Yeah.
And then the end of the month comes, and then obviously now it's not true, and then you get so down on yourself, and you got excited just a little bit. So people don't think of the impact after the fact, but at the end of the day, loving the script and the way that we can communicate that. But just wanting to move on slightly with the last few minutes that we have, because I want our viewers to know Mandy's focus areas here at the Tiny Room, being part of our team, you know, servicing and really being a support to our Afrikaans speaking clients, but also your expertise and experience that you bring, not only personally, but also from a qualification point of view, in family mediation and divorce mediation. You know, you've got passions on walking a journey with parents, you know, being a parent yourself, not only now with the infertility, but just give a little bit in brief, you know, some of the areas that you are hoping to, you know, get into with some of our clients, to reach out and say, hey, you know, I'm good at this, you know, this is what I am passionate about. Like, what are some of those focus areas that you would love to have some of our gorgeous human beings come through the door and sit in front of you and do life with them? So like, throw it out there.
I think I can start off with parents, you know, being a parent myself, I know how hard it is. And being a single parent, you know, it's a whole new dimension that comes with that as well. But I know sometimes that with kids, life throws you curveballs, and I'm passionate about supporting parents, and also about walking a journey with them and talking about parenting skills. I think that sometimes we are almost like thrown into parenthood. And you know, whatever your story is, that we don't really prepare ourselves for what's happening.
Even if you try, there's no manual.
There's no manual. And so I think a lot of the times there's a lot of parents out there that's really frustrated, and all the focus is mostly on my teen is acting up, or there's something wrong, and you know, it's all these behavioral problems and I don't know what to do, but there's no support for the parent. Whereas the parent need as much support.
Definitely.
So that's one of my passions is parent, you know, being supportive towards parents and walking the journey with them. Also, having gone through a divorce, it's been, when I say that the infertility, the divorce was the hardest thing, you know, that I had to go through. But I learned so much. You know, being a qualified therapist, you think you know a lot, and we do, but I think sometimes once you've experienced it,
firsthand,
there's a whole new dimension that comes with it. So I'm passionate about pre-divorce and post-divorce therapy. I think really everybody that is going through divorce needs to consider that. It helps a lot.
Even separation, because I mean, I'm finding with me focusing on tweens and teens, I'm so happy that I can get my parents of my tweens and teens to come and sit with you, because there are a lot of pre-divorce where there's a long separation period, and I see the impact on the tweens and the teens. So I get to support the tweens and teens during that pre-divorce season of possibly separation, and trying to co-parent in two different homes and trying to navigate all of that. It's very unsettling for a tween or a teen, with all that confusion of adolescence as an awkwardness. You know, it's a lot. And now you get to go and be that support for, you know, we have a lot of single moms that come through our doors. I'm very passionate about single moms or single parents, but I love that you are on board, because we haven't been able to implement it or action it, and Mandy gets to fill this gap, which is awesome with pre and post divorce. But like you were saying, with the parenting, they a lot of the time are parents, and then with the pre and post divorce, what are you kind of hoping, just in closing, what are you hoping to really, in a niche way, kind of unblock and maybe do life, but what is the one thing that you kind of hope that you had, like being the Mandy that you are now, having the Mandy back then, what would have been the most helpful in that season?
Oh, this is a difficult one. Listen, are you putting me on the spot?
Is it maybe just having somebody that can relate, that's not in the situation, so that you can actually just talk to them objectively about some of the stuff?
Yeah, I think looking back on life, I think if I had the courage earlier on to speak out about a lot of things.
Ooh, okay.
I think my journey might have looked different. But I was, for a long time, I didn't have the courage to speak up and to address problems and address issues within myself. And I think looking back now, if I knew back then to start this journey with myself.
Okay, spot on. Love it.
And start the journey and look at what is in my way, what obstacles am I putting in the way of life, and addressing those. I think the outcome might have looked a bit different, but I'm pretty happy with where I'm at the moment.
And I like the fact that you can be the person that you need during that time. Like with me, with my tweens and my teens, I always say, I'm so happy that I get to be the Lucinda for my tweens and my teens that I never had going through tween and teen stuff, because I had a horrific time, I feel, during high school years, and I had to learn the hard way. And why must people live hard? Why don't we work smart, and go and speak to people that have gone through life a bit more ahead of time and bumped our heads so many times and gone through some horrible things. And let us be that support for people and have the training and the qualifications and all those lovely bells and whistles. But for me, life experience and just kind of going through those dark times, maybe someone's already experiencing them, but maybe can experience it a little bit lighter.
Yes.
Just a little bit lighter.
Yeah, I think that, just knowing that there's some hands that can hold you a bit or catch you.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just like that one word that somebody says to you that you need.
Yeah.
So I think it's so important that whatever you are struggling with is to reach out and to get the help that you need.
Because we're trying to debunk this whole thing or stereotype and stigma that therapy is only for, crazy people. And, there's mental illness and there's mental health, and therapy is, are you wanting to be the best version of yourself? And that's no matter what that's packaged like or outfitted like, whatever you're going through, we deal with it all here. And it's a seriously, safe space, comfy vault, as I call it. But Mandy, thank you so much for being part of the team. And, Mandy is really bringing a high caliber, a standard, and obviously expertise and life experience that Kirsty and myself, we can't do it all. And between the three of us, we are helping so many people. And we are hoping that you reach out and realize that therapy is not only for people with mental illness, that you can be going through something that you think, oh, I need to deal with myself. It can't be that bad, I need to brush it off. But you need an objective person, preferably a professional, not a family member who's your counselor or therapist. Doesn't always help when a friend or family member is trying to be your counselor or therapist. They're not objective enough, but also they don't have the professional training to unpack, rebuild and reset and get you the clarity that you need to go live your best life, as we say. And that looks differently for everybody. And then go boss your life. So I'm really excited for everybody to watch this episode. Thank you so much for being here. You're going to be back, I know for sure. We've got some other focus areas like divorce, for example, that we're going to unpack, and how we're going to package this pre and post divorce and how this looks, for those that are interested. But please like, subscribe, click on that notification button. You can reach out to us on social media, on Instagram at The Tiny Room Therapy. And also you can email us at info@thetinyroomtherapy.com or go book on our website www.thetinyroomtherapy.com. Really user friendly, really easy to reach out to us. But thank you for watching, thank you for listening, and we love you guys. We are here for you, so please knock on our door. The Tiny Room is waiting for you. And we also do virtual sessions, so we have clients from all around the world. So we'll chat to you soon. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.